Hello Year 1, this is your maths lesson for Friday of this week. You've done really well with your learning. I've been very impressed in the starters and with the multiplication work that you're already starting to do. Now for our starter, we're going to have a look at one of the areas of our maths that's quite tricky in Year 1, and it's these type of addition questions, where we've got an addition here, 2 and 3 is the same as 1 and something else. So it needs to balance, this side needs to balance with this side. So we're going to have a look at that. Now it's quite a tricky thing to do. With the Numicon we can make it look really easy. Let's look at what 2 and 3 is. Now we can see that this side is worth 5. I'm going to cover that up with a 5. Just let me if I do this. So we can see it nice and clearly. We can see our 2 and the 3 is the same as a 5. Now here, we need to think about what is going to go in this missing space. 2 and 3 is the same as 1 plus something. So have a think what's going to go there so that our shape is the same on each side of the equal sign to show it's the same. Well done if you spotted it was this one. If we cover up, we can see our 2 plus 3 is the same as 1 and 4. Let's take those away again. We can see that we get exactly the same shape. So if you're doing those, my tip is if you haven't got your Numicon, add these together and maybe put a little note of the number at the top. Then you need to make this side be the same, it needs to be equal. Let's try one more example like that with some different numbers. Let's make this 7 and let's make this one 3. So 2 and a 7 is the same as 3 plus something. So let's get our 7 and add the 2 to it. So have a think what that equals, which shape is that the same as? And you would be correct if you'd said the 9. It's the same shape as the 9. Then here we've got 3 plus something. Now I can see that 3 looks the same as the top of the 9, so I'm going to put our 3 down first. So think what this shape is worth that we need to make that the same value. You would be correct if you'd said the 6. You can see that's the same size. So let's just check that both of those make 9. Yeah, both of those make 9. Let's take the 9s off the top so we can see they're the same. A 2 and a 7 is the same as a 3 and a 6. That's just a bit of revision. That's something we've done a couple of times this year, but it is tricky and it'll take some practice. So there's some practical methods for how to solve these problems where you have to do a balance. This side has got to be the same as this side. But let's move on to the main bit of our lesson today. So we're going to be learning about making arrays. You might not have heard that word before, so I'll be showing and explaining it to you. Now when we're doing multiplication, we're thinking about so many lots of something or so many groups. So I'm going to make a group of 3 and another group of 3 and another group of 3. This is called an array. So we've made 3 rows of 3. And as we're starting to look at this sign, we can describe that as 3 lots of 3. It's very hard for me to get my numbers one number per square, but please remember to do that when you're at home. And you don't need to know the answer, but you need to have the words to be able to describe that. So we've got 3 rows of 3. We could also say our array. This is our array. This is what it looks like. It's got 3 columns that are worth 3. The challenge is to be able to say that altogether there are 9 here. I'm going to make a different array this time. Now let's try first of all and think about how we could describe that array. So we could look at the rows. The rows are the one that go across. I remember columns. Sometimes you get buildings. In fact, right, here are some pictures. This is how I remember what a column is. I think about these kind of buildings. You get lots of these in Greece, and the column is the one that holds it up. So they go up. So this direction. So if you're struggling with rows and columns, that's a way to remember. Let's have a look at the columns. So there are 3 columns and each of them has 4. So we can call that 3 lots of 4. We can also look at the rows. So for the rows, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 rows of 3. So there are 3 4s and 4 rows of 3. So this is a challenge to be able to write these in this way. This sign means lots of 4, lots of 3, 4 times 3. It's a bit like with subtraction, there's lots of words. Subtract, minus, take away. It is the same with times. 4 lots of 3 or 3 lots of 4. And let's have a look at another one. So I'm going to put some down here and I'm going to get rid of those. So see if you can describe in words, stick it in your head if there's somebody there with you. Can you describe this array for me? Have a go at describing it. Think about the rows or the columns. Okay, so let's have a look at the columns going down first. So I can see that there are 5. A 2 and a 3 makes 5. So I can see there are 2 lots of 5. If I go this way, we're looking at the 2s. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots of 2. If I wanted to give myself a challenge and to write that, then I can write it as 2 lots of 5 or 5 lots of 2. It's hard for me to get my writing sitting on the line on here. I'd normally be writing on my whiteboard if I was at school, but try and get your work neatly in your book if you work in your book today. There is a really good website as well that shows you this. So if you want to see some bigger arrays, let's have a look at what 6 lots of 7 looks like. So that's a much bigger array. So we've got 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 7 times. We can look at it this way. And we can show it the other way round and it's still the same amount. So we've got 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 6 times. We can see that big number. You don't need to solve these yet, but we need to know what that looks like. If someone says 7 lots of 6, we know we need to make 7 lots of 6. So we've got 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, all the way down 7 times. That's what our array looks like. Let's go back to here and look at some reasoning problems. It says, I have got 6 Lego blocks. So let's make that 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just take that off. It says I've put them in the rows of 3. How many rows will I have? So let's try and picture that in your head before we do it practically together first. I've got 6 blocks. I put them in rows of 3. How many rows will I have? You would be correct if you'd said 2 rows. 2 rows of 3. Now this is a much bigger one. So it says this time I have 22 Lego blocks. I'm going to pause and set that up for you so you can see. Okay, here we go. It says I need to put them in rows of 10. So I'm going to try and line these up. Maybe I can do it at the same time for both rows. Let's just take this off. I've probably got an extra one now. Let's get rid of this one. So now I've got 2 rows of 3, 2 rows of 4, 2 rows of 5, 2 rows of 6, 2 rows of 7, 2 rows of 8. Well, they're getting a bit wobbly. Let's move that one down. So let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we need 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. why I'm missing some. We need a few more. So let's check. So read the question again. I have 22 Lego blocks. I put them in rows of 10. So I've got 10, and from our counting in tens, we know another 10 is 20, 21, 22. So let's read the question again. I put them in rows of 10, I've done that, and it says how many are left over. We can see the number left over is just down here, there are 2. So we couldn't make equal rows, so we get these blocks that are left over. Let's have a look at your activities for today. So these are our activities. Activity 1, complete the worksheet, and there are 2 optional challenges: to draw some arrays in your maths book, which I'll explain, and to complete some reasoning problems. So your worksheet looks like this. I'm going to read it out so you can use this to help you with the reading if you are working on your own at home. This says circle each row of sweets. How many rows are there? And you need to write how many rows. So circle each row of sweets and write a number for how many rows. Remember the way columns go, they go this way. Circle each column of apples. How many columns are there? There are so many columns. It says make this array, so you could use some practical resources or you could use the one that's been done for you. You need to say there are something counters in each row. There are, and how many rows? There are something counters all together. For B, there are how many counters in each column? There are, and how many columns? There are something columns. And there are so many counters all together. And then this is the bit we're going to look at in your books that you can do. So in your book, so your learning objective is making arrays. And the date on Friday is going to be the 1st of the 5th, 20. And you're going to draw some arrays. You can colour in the squares, try and be nice and neat. And because this is a challenge, you're going to try and write this like this. You could say that there are 2 lots of 3. And practice using that sign. So we've got 2 columns of 3. We could also say that we've got 3 columns of 2. So to start using this sign, if that's tricky, I don't mind if you write some sentences like on the worksheet, but for a challenge, start to be having a look at this sign. So draw the array in your book and write some number sentences next to it. And there are also some different challenges, I think. Just need to open those up for you. Here they are. And again, I'm going to read these out and there will be a bit of a video just going through some strategies for these. So this is an investigation. How many different arrays can you make that equal 20? Draw these in your maths book. So ways of colouring in squares to make rectangles. So there's 20 squares coloured in. 2. There are some sweets in a jar. Sarah eats half of them. This is the number of sweets left over. How many sweets were in the jar? 3. I've put a clue. You might try this with some objects like Lego bricks if it's tricky. Amy has 32 pears. She puts the pears into bags of 5. She needs 8 bags of pears. How many pears, more pears, does she need? So she puts the pears in bags of 5. She needed 8 bags of pears altogether. So you need to find out how many more she needs. If you're unsure how to do those, remember to log into the other video. We'll talk through some strategies.